Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. Ms. Hilberg, will you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Councilman De La Garza?
I am present.
Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
I am here.
And Mayor Crocker.
Here. If you would, please rise, join me for the pledges, followed by a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. All right. Welcome. Again, welcome, everyone. Great to see you here. We will dive into our agenda, and we will start with announcements and reminders. Mr. Garza, good evening. Do you have anything for us this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have a few updates and announcements for you this evening. On behalf of the Communications Department, we want to remind the public that the application deadline for the 2026 Citizens Academy is October 31st. Residents are encouraged to apply as soon as possible at victoriatx.gov/Citizens Academy for the free 6-week education program about our local government. The 2026 sessions will be held on Thursdays from January 29th through March 5th from 6 to 9 p.m. In addition, the upcoming November 4th joint general election includes 2 local propositions for the Victoria Fire Department. Proposition A, which would create a new civil service commission for the Victoria Fire Department, and Proposition B, which would give the fire department collective bargaining power. The city has put together a landing page with FAQs and more information about these 2 propositions, including a link to the informative presentation that was shared at our last council meeting. This landing page is available at victoriatx.gov/VFA election. We encourage residents to visit this page to learn more about these 2 propositions so that they can make an informed decision on election day. On behalf of Environmental Services, along with Keep Victoria Beautiful, we invite everyone to help your neighbor with our FW Gross Neighborhood Cleanup on Saturday, November 15th from 9 to 11 a.m., located at 1107 South Depot Street. We'll be helping residents move items to the curb for pickup, such as tree limbs, old tires, furniture, and mattresses. The fire department and fire marshal's office will also be installing smoke detectors for those residents who request them. Volunteers and residents are invited to stay for a hot dog cookout, music, and games. Volunteers can register at keepvictoriabeautiful.org. Lastly, on behalf of the Parks Department and Town Square Media, we want to remind the public of the free community Halloween party at the Victoria Community Center that'll take place tomorrow evening, Wednesday, October 22nd, from 5 to 9 p.m. The event will feature trunk-or-treat booths, Town Square Media DJs, and crafts and activities for all ages. And those are all the announcements for this evening.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move then to public and employee recognitions. I believe we do have one proclamation tonight for the Friends of the Library Week. Ms. Hilberg, will you please help me out there?
Yes, sir. Whereas Friends of the Victoria Public Library raise funds that enable our library to provide resources for programming, much-needed equipment, support for children's summer reading, early childhood literacy, and special events throughout the year, and whereas the members of the Friends understand the critical importance of well-funded libraries and advocate to ensure that our library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services to all ages, including access to print and electronic materials, as well as providing programs and services that allow for and encourage growth, development, and fellowship in the community. And whereas the Friends' gift of their time and commitment to the library sets an example for all in how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. Now, therefore, I, Duane Crocker, Mayor of the City of Victoria, do hereby proclaim October 19th through 25th, 2025 as Friends of the Libraries Week in Victoria, Texas, and urge everyone to join the Friends of the Library and thank them for all they do to make Victoria a better place to live.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to give just a yearly update on everything that the Friends have done this year. We have given almost $40,000 to the library. A huge amount of that, $26,000, pays for the summer programming and other special events that the library hosts throughout the year. We also donated $11,000 for a shelf in the children's department so that it would match the other furniture that's already there. So we're really excited about that. And $1,600 goes to fund the 1,000 books before kindergarten. And that's a program where parents read to their children and instill the lifelong love for reading. And periodically on their journey to that 1,000 books, they'll turn in their progress to the library and they get little awards and prizes. And at the end of their journey, they get a t-shirt that says, "I'm 1,000 books smarter," to wear on the first day of kindergarten. So the other event I wanted to highlight was the fundraiser that we had last month. It was attended by a lot of people. We had a good time. It was good food, good music, interactive, and we look forward to hosting something similar to that in the future. So thank you all so much for your support, and we appreciate the proclamation. Thank you.
Thanks for all you guys do for our library. All right. Mr. Garza, do you have any other public and employee recognitions?
I do have a few staff announcements
Okay,
and
great.
recognitions. I want to start off by publicly welcoming a few new team members to our leadership team. Some of you got a chance to meet them before the meeting. I want to start off with Ben Lake, a Victoria native, so he's come home. He's been hired as our head golf professional at Riverside Golf Course. In this role, he will oversee the management of the golf course, including tee times, booking and hosting tournaments, inventory, and financial reports. He's a Class A Professional Golf Association member with years of experience in tournament management, staff leadership, and member relations. And he has worked in multiple golf courses, including one in our own community and now with our very own golf course. And so we're excited to have Ben be part of the team. In addition, I'm sorry. We could take it one at a time. It's okay. I should have set the ground rules, right? In addition, we also have Sam Schulte, who began yesterday. She's been hired as our Assistant Director of IT. In this role, she will support the Director in planning, coordinating, and implementing the city's technology infrastructure and services. She will provide daily operational leadership, assist in the development of policies, and oversee key departmental functions to ensure secure, efficient, and responsive IT operations. Schulte has over 18 years of technical experience, including 5 years of experience directing large IT environments, which was our school districts. Her skill set includes hands-on technical resolution, infrastructure design and management, and department-level strategic planning and budgeting. And so very excited that Sam has joined our team. Or you may recall, this is a new position in the budget that'll help us with succession planning in case James wins the lottery. And so, Sam, welcome to the team. And lastly, long-awaited position. We, of course, have gone through a lot of change at a surface water treatment plant, and so we're excited to introduce John Smith, who is our new surface water treatment plant manager. In this role, he will oversee all operations, maintenance staff, and activities involved in the intake, treatment, and distribution of water supplies for the city. He has over 20 years of experience operating surface water treatment systems, working with plants ranging in size from 1 million gallons per day to 50 million gallons. He has held many positions within the utility industry, starting as an operator and working his way into managing surface water treatment facilities. We're obviously very excited that John is here as we continue to work at improving and enhancing our water treatment processes. And so, John, welcome. And lastly, a recognition, no picture, because these individuals are too busy working the streets of Victoria. But we wanted to recognize several police officers, Officers Roman Mancias, Nicole Himage, Roy Parker, and Benny Benavides. They recently passed the senior officer test on September 23rd and were promoted to senior police officer. To reach this rank, officers must have 3 years of service and pass a 100-question written exam with a score of 80 or higher. Please congratulate them for reaching this milestone when you see them. This is a great advancement in their career, and we thank them for their commitment to the city of Victoria and our entire community. So congratulations to them. And that's all I have for this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garza. So then we will move on to items from council. I do want to make a note that under items from council that we are going to move items D3 and D4 to action items. So they will come off of consent agenda in D and go to action items on E. Okay. Any other items from council? No, okay. Well, then we will jump right into citizens' communication. I have a few cards this evening. Please come forward as I call your name, and the first is Alejandro Gonzalez. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you. Kind of new to this, so bear with me. My name's Alejandro Gonzalez. I reside in Greens Edition. My favorite color's red. Guys, I guess I just have general concerns pretty much. I got a lot going on, a lot of griefs, a lot of grievances. Hate to be the burden of bad news, but here I am. I actually tried to run down over to your city manager's office, but they weren't in. So I guess this is just the next best step. Just pretty much negligence. I get code enforcement time and time again. I think I'm very popular with them here pretty recently, but and that's okay. I'm okay with that, but it almost seems as if their blinders are on. I say that because as soon as they leave my property, I guess they pass up the city lots that we have over in Greens Edition. So I guess there's been a couple of my neighbors have been bought out. And so they're getting their houses demolished and the city's, I guess, buying them, taking whatever. But that's it, and that's that. And those houses and those lots are overgrown. You know, my whole thing is I just like to know who inspects the job afterwards when they're done. Because I don't think they'd get away with a lot of what they're getting away with right now. Also, we have code enforcement. I guess they contract out help because they don't have enough employees to get the job done. But professionalism is out the door. I saw two grown men with their shirts off. I got women at my house. I got daughters, my wife, and they don't want to see that. And I don't really think that it should be my job to tell you guys this, you know. There's just a lot, and it's all over the place. There's a lot more. I just don't want to bombard you guys with all this, but that's just the gist of it. I appreciate your time. I think these guys know how to get a hold of me. I do have a couple of more questions, but we'll save some for the future. You know, I just think we all should be able to carry on with the celebrating and all that. You know, I know this dampened the mood, but hey, you know, got to do what you got to do, you know? So thank you guys for your time, and we'll be seeing you, I'm pretty sure. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you for your comments. Next, I will call Caleb Slavic. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, y'all. Hope everybody's having a great day today. My name is Caleb Slavic. I'm one of the staff pastors at Riverside Church. We have our senior pastor and other pastor here as well. And really wanted to take this time to thank y'all for everything that y'all do. This might be a surprise. I think Mayor Crocker knows that we are doing this today, but to other council members, that we, from the bottom of our heart, we support y'all. And Scripture says that we are to pray for our leadership, to pray for those in elected government. And we know at times, you know, things may go overlooked of what y'all do, or people might not even understand what y'all do, but it makes an impact in our families and our lives each and every day. And so we feel the impact of y'all's wisdom, y'all's guidance, and really, we just wanted to share our heart with y'all. We have some gifts for y'all as well. We wanted to share our heart with y'all, that we're praying for y'all, you know, for your family. We're praying for wisdom, praying for guidance. I know leadership isn't easy, but for little moments like this, I know it helps for y'all to know that from the bottom of our heart here at Riverside Church, we are praying for y'all, praying for your families, and speaking that, you know, no matter what happens, the path's going to be clear for you guys and that God's going to be with y'all, protecting y'all all the way to it. And we have some gifts for y'all if we can present them to y'all. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
We have some gifts for y'all. So each one, there is a, and sorry, so it's a basket per each. There's a Bible, there is a plaque, and there is some things from the church as well. I know there's some council members or district who aren't here, but this is just for y'all.
Awesome.
Good evening.
Thank you very much.
My name is Pastor Robert Rivera. People call me Pastor Bobby. We started the church about 18 years ago. My father was here in the late 70s. My father came from Houston. We moved here when we were little. My father built a business right beside Riverside Park called Riverside Convention Center. He built a facility that was about 26,000 square feet. We had events in the community, serving the community, not like we serve now, but we've always been involved in business here, in real estate, through other businesses, driving ranges and so forth on the 22 acres that now the soccer fields sit on. So during that time, we gave our life over completely to God. And now here we are, almost 30-something years later or more, serving as pastors in our community. The irony of all of this is that we now pastor people that used to go to my father's business years ago. And so as a family, we kind of understand growing up in the city, scraping our knees on the streets of downtown Victoria, this is our town as much as it is anyone else's to take on the burden of praying for our city, praying for our officials, and as a church being on the front lines. We started 18 years ago with 4 people in our home. Now our church is bumping right around 2,000 people, making a difference every single month through Pastor CJ, who just spoke, who leads our CARES ministry, outreaches in every department. My wife, Dawn Rivera, literally has such a great heart for the special needs community. We also host the Night to Shine every year, working with the school districts, and over 1,000 people come to be a part of this. And so along the years, we've always felt that we have begun to see emergence in our similarities as servants to our community. With that being said, our heart really is just to come and again reiterate what we just heard from Pastor CJ, that we thank you for your service, thank you for your volunteering, your time, being away from your family, taking our burdens as you do, and then trying to do something with it, and then working on the legislation that you have to work on and the responsibilities that come with your position. So as pastors, we just want to tell you thank you for partnering with us, and we would love to partner with you and just simply pray a special blessing over you, if that be okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Wonderful. If we can do that just for a moment, just bowing our heads. Now, Lord, we come here today just simply because of gratitude and servanthood. We just pray a special blessing, God, over all the council. We thank you, God, for our mayor. And we thank you, dear Lord, for the wisdom that they need for everyday decisions, and that the camaraderie that they have and the unity, God, in our community, that every decision that they make, dear God, would just be fruitful, and that you would bless their homes and their families as they sacrifice the time to be here with us in the city. In Jesus' name we pray. And everybody, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. And thank you all for what you do in the community. All right. That was a surprise, huh? All right. My next card is Tabri Houston. Hi, Miss Houston. How are you? Good to see you again.
I'm good. It's
Did
great
I
to
butcher your first name?
No, you said it correct.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So my name is Tabri Houston. I am a Victoria resident and local. I am just here to tell you a little bit about something that we have going on. Teens Grounded, a youth leadership and development program, has partnered with C3 Victory Church, hosting a community homework club. So this homework club is for high school and junior high students. It is free. We provide after-school snacks as well as dinner for these students. We meet on Mondays and Wednesdays from 3 to 6 p.m. And we are just looking for support from our community as well as volunteers. If you're interested in volunteering or helping out in any way, you can contact Jody Yancey Sandoval. Her phone number is 361-655-9019. This does a lot for our community and for our young people. I have brothers and sisters who are in middle school as well as elementary school, and a brother who just graduated. So taking the time to pour into our young people, showing them that they matter, they are the future of Victoria, and if we want them to stick around and we want them to continue to support the things that we have going on now, we have to start pouring into them and showing them that we as a community do care about them and that their voices matters, their opinion matters, and that starts with homework. So as small as it might seem, spending a couple hours with these young people, understanding where their hearts are and where their minds are and what their passions are, it can only help us to develop a better community that serves them as young people who will one day be senior citizens within this community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Houston. Appreciate your comments. All right, I have a card from Mackenzie Baca, I believe. Good evening, welcome.
Hello. My name is Mackenzie Baca, and I'm representing the Victoria Parents Book Coalition. Our group came about because of mutual concerns among the citizens of Victoria for the content available in the children's section of the library. I want to take a moment to thank the Victoria Library for working with us on a recent book list where a large chunk of the books that we identified were removed from the children's section. That is very much appreciated. We now turn to the City Council for an appeal on the policy for the children's books. We believe the juvenile collection development policy should be updated to prevent radical gender ideology, same-sex relationships, and critical race theory from entering the circulation. The Texas state law and Victoria City Code regarding harmful materials for minors both state that harmful material is what is patently offensive to the prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable for minors. We, the people of Victoria, have been telling the city that these books go against the prevailing standards of the community. This issue has been brought up twice in the past 5 years. They do not match our values as a majority conservative and religious community, and we would like our representatives to make policies that reflect our values. If you do not believe these ideologies are harmful, let's take a look at transgenderism specifically. According to the National Library of Medicine, a study conducted in 2022, 86% of minors who identify as transgender contemplate suicide and 56% attempt suicide. This is an obviously harmful ideology to put in the minds of our young people. We want our children to be free of questioning if they are a boy or a girl or expecting to be an oppressor or a victim because of the color of their skin. Taking these books out of circulation and changing the policy so that children can have a library section that promotes truth and beauty is essential. You can cite the First Amendment, but we have to have standards for what we tell our children. Just because we have free speech doesn't mean we tell our children whatever we want. You can in your own home, but our government shouldn't. Texas recently adopted 3 laws that show the changing of the tides. Bill SB 8 states that you must use a bathroom that aligns with your biological sex. Bill SB 12 bans DEI initiatives in schools. And Bill HB 229 defines male and female according to biological markers. Victoria needs to follow suit. Lastly, you do not need to be a Christian to believe these ideas. But if you are, know the Bible commands us to tell the truth and to answer to God first. If any of you on the city council are Christian, I ask you to open your Bible. You all just got new ones. Pray and tell me if God approves of what you are allowing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. And then finally, I have Michael Vondera. Good evening, Mr. Vondera.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Michael Vondro. I live at 2107 North Bend, Jordan. I'd like to thank Officer Young on his new job and career. I appreciate the job he did for the city of Victoria. And one of the issues I have is police officers telling people riding bicycles they can't ride on the sidewalk. And it's very unsafe riding a bicycle on the barrel. You have people on cars driving like a foot from you and honking and say, get off the road, you loser, get on the sidewalk. So then you get on the sidewalk and the police officers, get off the sidewalk, get on the road, you know. And, you know, in bigger cities, they have bicycle ways, you know, where you can ride your bike. In city of Victoria, they don't. And they don't have the room or the money to have specialized bicycle paths, and I wish the police officers, that work for the city of Victoria would not enforce that ordinance, but they are enforcing it, and it is a $285 fine if you get caught riding on a bicycle if they want to give you a ticket, and another $285 if you don't have lights, if you're riding it in the darkness. But I wish it was something they wouldn't enforce. In the past, they haven't been enforcing it, but right now, that's one hot topic is catch people riding on sidewalks and, give them a reprimand. I'm not aware of any officers giving tickets, but it is very dangerous. And I told one officer I'd rather be, he said, if you ride in the road, you're in the right. I said, if a car hits you and kills you, you'll be dead right. I said, I'd rather be in the wrong and be alive than to be dead right, And, you got cars that hate you because you're on the road. You got officers that don't like you because you're on the sidewalk. And I wish the city attorney, Addison Lacey, could repeal that law and take it off the books because it don't make no sense, But they are enforcing it right now. And I'm not going to argue with the officer because he could have gave me a $285 ticket for riding on the sidewalk and another $285 for the bike, not having lights. And, I have a car, and my mechanic, he had his business broken into, and they stole his tools, and he had to have detectives investigate. So that's why I don't have my car. But I would like to take that off the books or have it changed. And there was someone that got hit and hurt on an e-bike, and she's in real serious condition. And there's an app if anyone wants to donate money. It's up there. Thanks, and have a good day. Trying to make the 3-minute deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vondo. Okay, that is all the cards I have for this evening, so we will move on in the agenda. We have no items of public hearing, so we will move to the consent agenda with the exception of items 3 and 4. Ms. Hilbert.
Yes, sir. Item D1 is adoption of minutes of the special meeting held on October 8th, 2025. Item D2 is a resolution approving a contract for the annual software maintenance with Tyler Technologies Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $224,823. Item D5 is a resolution approving a 5-year contract with ThinkGuard LLC for data backup and disaster recovery services in an amount not to exceed $406,539.18. Item D6 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a real estate listing agreement with Griffin Realty Advisors LLC for 1304 Southwest Bend Jordan Street.
Thank you, Ms. Hilbert. Do I have a motion with respect to the consent agenda as read?
Motion to approve consent agenda as read.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda as read passes. So we'll jump to action items for council, and I will move those two down as items 3 and 4 handily under that. So we'll go with item E1.
Item E1 is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission to operate Victoria Public Transit for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $600,000.
Good evening, Ms. Fulgham.
Good evening, Council. So I have a short presentation, but it's actually not about the interlocal, but it is about all that transit is doing right now. So if you remember, Victoria Transit recently went through a route study to establish new routes to help better serve the citizens of Victoria. But of course, it is a federally funded program, and you know how the federal government likes to tell us how we should operate all things. And so in order to implement those new routes, we have to go through environmental justice review, and which is largely a huge amount of public engagement. And so to that end, the Victoria MPO had some extra grant funds, and we were able to help Victoria Transit and go out and help them develop a Victoria Transit public engagement plan to get the necessary public engagement involved in order for them to implement the new route study. So I have a short update on that plan. So the project is simply to collect the community input that is necessary to turn over to the Federal Transit Authority enable Victoria Transit to implement the new route study. So as a refresher, this is our current routes versus the proposed routes. What I learned through the whole route study is that the best goal of a good transit system is to be able to purchase ice cream at the grocery store and make it home before it melts. And so these proposed routes are supposed to do that. So as part of this public engagement plan, they're going to be reviewing, our consultants are reviewing all of our previous plans and then the Title VI documentation to help identify where our transit stops should be located, and then of course all the public input that's required to be able to turn into FTA. So our public involvement methods, a part of the plan is developing a public participation plan. So this PPP will be utilized for this plan, but it's also something that Victoria Transit can adopt and use in the future for any time that they are required to go through the public participation process for any sort of additional plan updates or things that they're required to do. So that part's been drafted. Engaging in community partners, of course, the whole purpose of the plan. And then finally, what's most important to give to FTA is documenting everything that we're doing. And so we'll get a plan at the end that we can turn over to them. So we've been working a lot of outreach. We've been collaborating with existing community partners to kind of piggyback on existing community events, doing pop-up events. All of our materials and everything are in Spanish as well as English. We have done a lot of meetings, and the utility bills this month will have the survey that is being gathered. Except for the first cycle, unfortunately, the paper that we had the surveys printed on at UPS were too thick for the machine, so we had to mail those out separately for cycle 1. But the utility bills for cycles 2, 3, and 4 will have the survey in the utility bills, and that will also all go onto the online survey. And then lastly, our planners and Maggie have been doing writer surveys this week. So some of the public engagement locations and events, which we've pretty much completed all of these except for the public meetings, is attending Southside Community Coalition, going to the college and the university and doing tabling events there, Community Crossroads, visiting with Victoria Public Library. And then we do have some public meetings scheduled early in November, which will be kind of the final plan presentation. We've had stakeholder engagement, so if you are on the Sales Tax Development Corporation, you've already seen this presentation. Apologies. We tabled at Victoria Christian Assistance Ministry, working with United Way and also the Public Health Department. And we've been spreading the word about our project website that has the actual route plan and then takes you to a link to complete the survey. So the survey can be done on a paper survey, or folks that receive the paper surveys, they have QR codes on them, and so someone can take it online as well. The online survey is a little cooler in that you can actually go into the map and leave comments of where stops should be. So it's a little bit more interactive and gives a little bit more opportunity for robust comments and engagement. And I'll just take a minute to leave this on the screen for anybody that's watching that wants to go on and take that survey. The website is victoriatx.gov//transit plan. And it is in Spanish and English. So once we finish all of this public engagement, which will close on November 14th, then again, our consultant will draft all of that into a plan that we can turn in. And one big part of that draft plan, other than documenting all of the public involvement, is part of this engagement, if you go take the survey, is asking people where should stops along the new routes be. And so that will be part of this plan that will outline where the stops are. But transit will still have a big job to do once this public engagement part is done. So as you can see, this is going to wrap up in January, and then they will have to then take, of course, the plan and take some months to train their drivers on the new routes and also alter the stops. So remove stops that are obsolete and then put up the new stops. And so ultimately that will probably look like a service standard plan that will identify which stops need just a sign, which ones need a bus stop, a shelter, all of those things. So by the time they're really starting the new routes, we're probably looking at the beginning of summer, late spring. And then, of course, the hours will continue to be limited based off of this year's funding and the interlocal and the federal allocations. So hopefully, these new plans and everything over the summer, we will see increased ridership, and then we will be talking next year about what the real full cost may be of implementing or operating transit under the new transit plan with the new routes. So right now, we are definitely still in that public engagement phase. So our call to action is get the word out there, tell everybody about the survey, tell them to check their utility bills unless you're in the most recent cycle, and they'll get a separate survey in the mail. But just get the word out there so that we can get as much engagement and information as possible so that transit is really prepared to move forward.
Okay, great. Any questions for Ms. Fulgham? All right, thank you very much. I know this is a big undertaking, so you and your team are doing a great job. I know it's a lot of work, so thank y'all for taking on this thing. All right, let's move on then to, oh wait, we need to approve that, don't we? We actually had an agreement, yeah. All right, so we have the interlocal agreement with Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission. That's in your packet. Are there any motions with respect to that agreement?
I move to adopt.
I second it.
All right, got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much. We'll move on then to item E2.
Item E2 is a resolution appointing or reappointing the Downtown Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Board Chair.
Good evening, Ms. Williams.
Good evening. This is more of a housekeeping item more than anything. I don't have a formal presentation, but just wanted to give y'all a quick update. The TERS board was established in 2021. Some of you do serve, and thank you so much for that. The board is made up of 7 members. We have Jeb Lacey, who is the chair, Dr. Young, Mr. De La Garza, Mr. Lofgren, Ashley Thomas, who is the vice chair, Sean Stibbage, who represents the Navigation District, and Bland Proctor, who represents Victoria College. And so we're essentially just recommending that we reappoint Jeb Lacey as the chair for the TERS board.
Okay, and just so you guys know, I did get a text from Jeb, and he said, good afternoon, Mayor. I really planned on making the meeting this evening. Unfortunately, I am tied up and not able to make it. However, I want council to know that I would be pleased to serve again as the chair of the TERS board if it suits you. So we're not just volunteering him, so.
He's done an excellent job.
He has. So are there any motions with respect to this appointment or reappointment?
Motion to reappoint Jeb Lacey.
I second it.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And E2 is passed.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll jump back up then to our moved items from the consent agenda, and we'll take up item D3.
Item D3 is a resolution considering the recommendation of the Planning Commission in regards to a variance to Section 21-138A for the Lucas subdivision to allow for the platting of rural detached single-family dwelling lot below the minimum total lot size requirement.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to announce that I need to abstain from this item.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Fulgham, welcome back.
So this is a fairly simple variance in that with the UDO, at the request of the health department and the county, we had upped our minimum lot size from 1 acre to 1.5 acres because of getting both water wells and septic tanks on 1 acre lots had proven to be a little problematic in a lot of cases. In this case, the lot is 1.25 acres approximately, so it's about a 1/4 acre under size of the minimum 1.5, and the health department did, of course, review the lot and found that there's not a problem with getting both of those utilities on the lot, and so they did recommend approval, which led to our staff recommendation of approval. As a reminder, we have historically, I think that changed under former Mayor Paul Palashik, historically put items that received both staff recommendation of approval and Planning Commission recommendation of approval onto the consent agenda, since it had gone through quite a few ayes at that point and everyone recommends approval.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Ms. Wilman? All right, do I have a motion with respect to item D3?
Move to approve item D3.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed and one abstention, so D3 passes. All right, then we'll jump to item D4. Ms. Vogel?
Again, this is,
Do you want me to call
Well,
it?
let
Oh,
April read it.
yes, I'm sorry.
Item D4 is a resolution considering a recommendation of the Planning Commission in regards to a variance to Section 21-179B2 and Section 21-190A1 for a property located at 5101 Houston Highway to allow for a third driveway to be placed along South John Stockbauer Drive, which is over the allowable number of driveways along a roadway for its lot size that does not meet the driveway separation standards.
Thank you, Ms. Hilbert, for keeping me in line. Now, Ms. Fulton.
okay, so this variance actually came to us through a Public Works Department. Former Public Works Director Ken Gill at the time brought it to us as Speedy Stop had first approached them. Because of the property's unique adjacency to the railroad tracks and that median in the quiet zone, there is going to be limited development of driveways, of course, along that stretch. And so it felt that adding a driveway that was below the spacing would not be a safety hazard. And so recommended approval. And then, of course, staff followed suit of Public Works recommendation. And then Planning Commission additionally recommended approval for this request.
Okay. Any questions? I know we've all seen both of these in our packet with the various materials, so any other questions? All right. If not, I will entertain a motion with respect to item D4.
I move we adopt.
Second.
Got a motion and a second on item D4. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And D4 is approved. All right, so that will take us then to, I'm jumping around here, to our city manager's reports. Mr. Garza.
Yes, sir. So as our retired Public Works Director makes his way out of the retirement chair to the
You know, he
podium.
retired, but I still see him
I know,
all the
he's
time.
we can't get rid of this guy. But before he introduces our consultant, I want to make a few remarks as it relates to this water feasibility study, because I want to make it as clear as I can that the city of Victoria does not have a water crisis. There have been news reports and chatter on social media, regarding water crisis and crises, whatever. There's several water crises going on around the state, even some in our region, which might lead to some confusion. And so I just want to make it very clear that we do not have a water crisis in Victoria, and that what caused us to look into a water feasibility study was simply just us trying to be proactive in trying to identify where we sit, where we stand, and what our options would be. And you'll hear more about that here shortly, but I just wanted to make that as clear as I can. So, Ken?
Mr. Gill, welcome.
Welcome. I'm going to introduce Jason and his team with CDM to give an update on the water feasibility study. Jason?
You're charging us for that, Ken?
I got to review it.
Hey, good evening, welcome.
Thank you for having us over here. Yes, my name is Jason Maldonado, and I am a Principal Client Service Leader with CDM Smith. And I actually would like to turn this over to Ms. Kim Chancellor, who is our project manager for this particular project.
Hi, Ms. Chancellor, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to provide an update on our project. I think the last time we spoke, we were just getting started and kind of walk through the scope of work with you guys. So it's good to be back. We're about halfway through, and so happy to give you guys an update. Wanted to start out just to remind everybody what the purpose of the study is. Jesus alluded to that a little bit in his intro. Talk a little bit about water background in Victoria, what we're looking at as far as the need for water, and then introduce some of the water supply options that we're currently evaluating, and then talk about where we're headed next for the next couple months. So just wanted to walk through the history of water in Victoria and remind everyone kind of where we've been and maybe where we're headed. Historically, the city was on groundwater prior to 2001. And because of some potential taste and odor issues and maybe not being able to keep up with some peak demands, in 2001, the city switched to surface water. They implemented some off-channel storage, and those surface water rights are limited secondary water rights. They're not senior water rights. So because of that, the city kept up their groundwater supplies. There's currently 8 operational wells that are used typically for emergency only. There is a groundwater exchange that the city's done in the past where they pump groundwater, and that groundwater is discharged into the river, and then additional surface water can be pumped in that case. And just kind of remind everyone where what our project goals are. We're really looking out into the future, trying to help the city be proactive and put a water supply strategy together, identifying water demands for the next 50 years for municipal, commercial, and potential industrial, and really kind of put a strategy together for the city that they can implement. We're looking at high level in this study. So part of this study is to identify any next steps that might need to be taken, some permitting actions or contracting actions that will help set the city up for the future. And then really what we want to do is put an implementation plan together. We want to identify what the city needs to do short term, what the city needs to do long term to implement the water supply strategy. And just to kind of give you an update on where we are with schedule, we're about halfway through the study, a little over halfway through. So the update you'll hear today is on task 1, our gap and vulnerability analysis, how reliable are their supplies and how reliable are some of the future supplies we're considering. And then task 2, the supply options that we have identified. We're right now in the middle of task 3, where we're evaluating those supply options that we have identified and scoring them based on some criteria. So hopefully in the next couple months, we'll be back with an update on the evaluation and scoring of options and kind of where we're headed with the supply strategy. Then I'll turn it over to Jenny now to talk a little bit about the technical part.
Great, thank you, and it's glad to be back, Council. Yeah, just want to walk you through a little bit of some of that initial analysis we've been doing as part of the study. As we look into future water demands, the first step was to consider population growth for the city. This graph up on the board, you can see the historical demand. The city has gone through kind of cycles where they've seen some more dramatic growth, and then also some periods where population has been flat. The most recent period has kind of been in one of those flatter periods. And as we pulled population projections from some other entities, there was a wide range of kind of where they saw the city going. So in blue, you can see the Texas Water Development Board. Their population projections for the city for the last round of regional water plans. They have the city kind of growing minimally, but staying pretty flat, and then even seeing some decreased population. But when we pulled data from Woods and Pool, which is kind of a national forecasting body, they show in that lighter blue line really more consistent growth in the city over time. So for our study, we kind of split the distance between those two. We're using that orange line where we're projecting continued growth, but at a little bit more conservative pace. So our study goes through 2080. Those numbers end up seeing about a 15% growth in the city population over that next 50 years. Again, it won't always be consistent like that. You'll probably see some periods where it goes faster and slower, but that's kind of the growth we've been planning for and anticipating in our study. Now, when we look at converting that population into what that means in terms of water demand, the city has recently typically served between 10 million gallons and 11 million gallons of water per day. That varies year to year. Again, typically if it's a wetter year, a drier year, that'll impact the water needs. But on a per capita basis, it ends up being about 162 gallons per person per day in an average year. That table on the bottom just gives you a little bit of a reference point of how Victoria compares to some other similarly sized communities. The average across Texas is 153. You can see Waco is very similar to Victoria. San Marcos is a little bit less, but each community is going to be different in terms of their climate, their customers. So that value of 162 is a reasonable number for a city like Victoria. But as we kind of look over time, again, with our expected population growth, that kind of band is how we see population potentially growing over time. And so again, over our 50-year planning horizon, now the demand is closer to 12 to 13 million gallons per day instead of the 10 to 11 you're currently seeing. The one thing I did want to note is those population and demand projections do kind of have the assumption built in that the city's customers will be similar to kind of the makeup today in terms of kind of a mix of residential and commercial customers. The one thing that can really impact that future demand is large new industrial water users. So we have been trying to coordinate with the Port of Victoria, the Victoria Economic Development Corporation, and to make sure we understand what they're seeing in terms of potential new development to the city. There are some potential large water users that may come to the area, but they would largely be outside of the city service area. So we haven't made any explicit assumptions of new large industrial users that the city would need to serve. But a lot of the information coming out of our study in terms of what supply sources are available and their potential yield could always be of use to city in the future if some of those conversations come up. Now looking a little bit about what existing supplies the city has. There's basically 3 existing supply sources. So there's surface water rights, and there's basically 7 different individual rights, which all have their own allocations and specific conditions for when they can be used. But if the water's in the river and all the conditions are met, it totals 24.1 million gallons per day. The city also has a contract with GBRA that allows 1.1 million gallons per day on a 5-year rolling average. But if there is a specific need, the city can call on more water for any specific year. And then, as Kim mentioned, the city also has its groundwater rights that it used to rely on exclusively. So you still have rights to 10.6 million gallons of groundwater. Usually only about 2 million gallons per day is used seasonally out of one of the groundwater wells. It's used to augment the supply from the river before it goes through the water treatment plant. But all the wells are maintained, so they are available for emergency use. But they're not typically used for kind of every year water supply, I guess. But you can see on the bar chart on the side that with all water being available, that the city has sufficient rights to more than meet the existing demands. So you can see there the average demand of about 11 MGD, and your current supply is far greater than that. Where you start to get into an issue is really under drier conditions under a drought. So a lot of those surface water rights are conditioned on available flow in the river. And many rights do not allow withdrawals when the river drops below a specific level. So the largest right in particular doesn't allow any withdrawals if the river is less than 300 cubic feet per second in July and August. The exact limits are kind of they vary month to month, but that gives you kind of a feel. And then once the river drops to about 100 cubic feet per second, it just becomes more physically difficult to even have the pumps withdraw from the river. So those are some of the critical water levels. As mentioned, the GBRA water, contracted water can be saved to use more in times of these low flows. And the city also does have some off-channel storage that it can rely on when there's less flow in the river. The current reservoirs have about 20 to 25 days of storage available. But you can see again now on the bar chart that when you start to add up those supplies that are more reliable under drought, they pretty much match where you are today in terms of average demand. The city can and has managed through kind of these low river flows, but you can start to see that this is where having some additional supplies that you feel like are reliable under these low flow conditions could be a benefit to make it, have confidence to make it through these low flow drought periods. And as we look over time and your demand continues to grow, this is where we start to maybe see some supply challenges in the future.
And so within this study, we've targeted between 2.5 and 7.5 million gallons per day is where we want to really make sure we have a plan in place in terms of supplies that the city could look to in the future to kind of have more of this water that you feel like could be relied on during times of drought. The other thing I wanted to just mention is there is an element of our study where we looked about how river flows might be changing in the future. And so we consider different climate models in terms of how temperature and rainfall patterns might change over time. We have two different graphs here. The top one just gives a flavor of historical stream flow. So this is flows that have occurred in the river back to the 1950s through present day. And the different bars indicate if there was any time during those years where you would have went into different flow restrictions, with the kind of darker orange being more restrictive, low flow conditions, and the lighter orange being less restrictive. But some of the future climate models, when we look at them and project what the impact could be to river flow, that's kind of this bottom time series. So this isn't current day, this is looking out another 75, 80 years towards the end of our planning horizon. But you can see it's a lot more frequent in terms of how often these low flow conditions might come up, which again means that the proactive planning to have additional drought reliable supplies in place will just be even more beneficial in the future. This is, again, just a little bit more detail about what might be expected. Again, these are two of the stream flow targets I kind of mentioned that are the 300 CFS is when you start to get more restricted in what you can withdraw, and the 100 CFS is when it becomes even more kind of physically difficult to withdraw from the river. Again, that 300 CFS, it starts to occur, as often as every other year, typically lasts 2 to 3 months, but can last kind of 8 to 9 months. And then that even more restrictive 100 CFS, it doesn't happen as frequently, looking at about 1 every 10 years. Maybe it's under that condition for just like a month or two, but it's still something that, you want to plan for, so you have a plan in place when it does occur. But that's the overview of kind of the need that we've identified. Again, as long as there's flow in the river, there's plenty of water. So it's really just these specific conditions that we want to make sure that the city has a plan in place. And so you feel confident that no matter what the river conditions, that you'll be able to have water to provide your customers.
Can you go back to the slide that shows that summary of drought condition availability?
Which one?
One more.
Yeah.
This is a really good graphic that illustrates and explains, why during times of low flow, staff is thinking very creatively on how to navigate, how to get through those periods. And so you may recall, at times staff thinking creatively about, moving water from one OCR to another, right? Because during certain times, we're very dependent on there being water in the OCRs to get us through that 2-3 months that we might not be able to pump water from the river. Right. This also helps explain why sometimes staff, is very particular and needs to be very strategic on when it draws down water from Canyon Lake through GBRA. Right. And so during times of low period, it really puts staff in a position to have to just be very strategic and very, very mindful. And so I just wanted to make that point even more clear that we're already experiencing the challenge, if you will, to meet peak in times of very restrictive low flow.
The next item we wanted to highlight were just some of the supply options we are looking at. As Kim mentioned, we're still in the middle of this analysis, but it'll give you a little bit of flavor of what's to come. Supply options under current evaluation, a lot of them are around groundwater because you have those rights, you're just not taking full advantage of them. So a lot of our analysis and some of our recommendations will be how to increase your use of those existing wells and that water you do have. Consider permitting new groundwater wells within the city limits. We have looked at, purchasing additional rights from neighboring landowners and converting one of your ASR wells
back to a traditional well. In terms of surface water, GBRA has their Water Secure project going and has sent the city information about what it would look like to join. So that's one of the options that'll be in our mix. We're also looking at improvements to that off-channel storage because it is something that the city relies on right now during those drought conditions. Desalination is also something being considered, both partnering with the Port of Victoria on some of their plans to build a desalination plant, as well as what it would look like for the city to have their own plant. And then a lot of communities are looking to water reuse, so we want to make sure we keep that in the mix too of different supply options being evaluated. Some of the ones that will be kind of discussed in the report, but not in as much detail. In terms of surface water, just acquiring more rights, that's something that isn't as much of a focus because there's limited availability, and the whole reason that we're looking to other sources is because the rights you do have aren't as available under those drought conditions. We're not looking as closely at ASR. There might be some discussion on it still. The city has looked at experimental ASR at one of the well fields, but has run into a series of challenges. Some of the water reuse options aren't as kind of high on our list. Just talking with city staff, doing like a purple pipe network in terms of providing a new non-potable supply wasn't really of interest. So we're gonna focus more on ways to maybe do potable reuse if there are any. And then I mentioned we are looking at some desalination options, but others like going all the way out to the bay or purchasing from further plants is something that's kind of getting screened out initially. And then as we evaluate supply options, these are some of the different metrics we'll be evaluating against. Reliability is going to be a high one. How confident are we that any water that's recommended is going to be there during those times of need? Cost is also a key concern. We'll be looking at capital costs of bringing in any new water supply, as well as annual maintenance costs. Then implementation in terms of permitting difficulty, operational complexity for city staff to run any new recommendations. Water quality is a metric being considered. And then we kind of have a little bit of a catch-all. The city does have some issues with pressure in the system, so any new water supply projects that could help solve already known issues just gives an extra benefit to any supply options we're considering. But that's really what we had for you today. As mentioned, we're going through and costing and scoring those supply options we highlighted, evaluating them against those metrics. That's what we'll present out, I think, next meeting is kind of how everything fleshed out and a little bit more of the details. And then it'll all be documented in our final report. Other comments from Ken? Yep.
While he comes up, can you go back to the slide 2 that talks about the options that we've screened out?
Sure.
Go ahead, Ken. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to talk about a few of the things that we do proactively. When the river gets below that 300, there are times when we get a rainstorm and it gets above it, we're pumping out of that river. I mean, we watch it daily, hourly, minute. We watch that river. So to just say, oh, that month is less than 300 on an average, it can be literally, if we get 4 hours of water, we turn those pumps on. So that's something I want to point out that's critical in our review. Another thing that was interesting is in 2013 and 14, we hit a stage where we run a pretty serious drought condition and we used the water exchange. In that water exchange program that TCQ allows us, we have to have a bioaquatic study completed to be able to pull that water from the wells into the west outfall into the river. We did that last year. It's good for 3 years. So that is a viable option right now, in addition to Canyon Lake. So we've got some of those things that really help us out. And as Jesus mentioned, we kind of juggle each one to make sure we best use the availability that we have.
I have a question. ASR used to be like it was going to be the best thing we could ever do. And we have some experimental wells, and I know there have been some problems with them, but is it cost prohibitive to look at traditional, just start from the scratch ASR, or is that not something that's favored anymore? What happened?
It's a good program. I think that's
You're
part of-
retired now, you can speak freely.
I can speak freely.
Yeah.
It is a good program. It can be very expensive, and the fact that you have to push that water downhole and then pull it back out. And it's good for, I think, a short-term, need, because you got to figure if we're in a drought stage for a year, there's no way you're going to be able to pump that much free water into that downhole to have a year's supply. So those ASR wells options are very expensive, and that's part of what CDM is going to do, is look at that to say, is that a viable option? Or should we just, use our existing groundwater that we have?
Yeah, I think the challenge, with the ASR well is that it's dependent on having the flow in order to put water in it. And if we're not going to have the flow to have that extra water to fill them up, it's kind of a moot point to have it.
Thank you.
Is that fair? Yeah. Can you go back a slide? I guess I meant the slide that talks about the, where is it? Water secure. So I really want to briefly provide you an update on the GBRA Water Secure project that you see here on this slide that's under current evaluation. The mayor and I had a chance to meet with GBRA a few months ago and basically clarify with them what would be the cost to be involved with this project. This project, of course, as I think everybody's aware, would take water from southeast of us in the Bay all the way to Central Texas, and so there was a thought that well, why don't we just tap into those pipelines? They're on a pretty aggressive time schedule to try and get commitments from different communities across that stretch, and even though it's technically under evaluation, I wanted to provide you the latest cost estimates of that because, quite frankly, it's really not an option, and I think it would behoove us to make GBRA aware that it's not a viable option for us, especially if we're already beginning to get a sense that accessing our groundwater is more than likely going to be our path of least resistance. And so, as an example, in that particular Water Secure project, they're looking to have all the different communities that are along that stretch contribute to the capital expenditure of that pipeline. We looked at potentially tapping into 5 million gallons per day of raw water up to 10 million gallons per day per water. And the cost to us would be roughly $250 million over 40 years to contribute towards the capital expense of 5 MGD. Upwards to 500 million over 40 years if we were to pursue the 10 MGD option. That is just for the capital expense. Those costs don't account for how much we would buy the water for. This is raw water, so this doesn't account for the cost of building any treatment facility to treat the water. And so as you can see, committing $250 million for 5 MGD, which we have access to 5 MGD in groundwater rights already, it's just not something that makes a lot of sense. And so I wanted to be transparent with you around some of these costs because I do think that we owe it to GBRA to be timely in our response to them, that this is just not looking like a feasible option for us. And like I said, it's solely cost driven. And they're also working off of surface water. And so I know that one of the goals of this exercise was to also diversify the source of water and not put all of our eggs in the basket of surface water. And so obviously proceeding that option would not achieve that either. So I just want to make you aware that in light of the information and in light of how far we've gotten in the study, we feel confident, and if there is no opposition, I will communicate to GBRA that this project is just not something that is feasible for us to participate in.
I think that's 100% the right answer. Yeah, it's just, as you said, that doesn't even include the water costs. That's just to have a seat at the table, so to speak. And we have other, less expensive options that can get us the same amount of money. And to piggyback a little bit on what Mr. Garza said, again, we are not in a terrible position as it relates to water. In fact, I think we're in a pretty strong position as it relates to water. It was particularly if you compare us to some other cities across the state who are having to pay these kind of this kind of money and infrastructure costs, just to make sure that they have water for their community. So I think that is in large part due to proactive measures that were taken previously in years past. And I think our predecessors did a excellent job of putting us in a good position. And I think this type of proactive study just kind of carries on that tradition, if you will, of making sure that we have water, that we have reliable sources, and that we've taken care of our community. So I think this is a very good project, and I appreciate the work you guys have put in on it already. Looking forward to your recommendations as well. So,
Great, thank you.
any other questions that anybody had on it? Okay, I believe that then takes us to the end of our agenda. Mr. Garza, do we have an executive session this evening?
No, sir.
All right, so with that, we are adjourned at 6:10.